Hello, family, and welcome to another episode of Role Model Experts Cafe. I'm your host, Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer. And today with me, I have an amazing gentleman. I have had an opportunity to see him in some of our networking events. I love his message and how he shows up in the world. I wanted to introduce you guys to Mr. W. Ian Walker, the author and speaker and producer. He's based out of Canada. Ian, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to be here today. And thank you, audience members, for tuning in. Ian, I know that what you talk about is very important. So tell our audience members why this is something that should be on every parent's radar and how you relate to this topic and you got involved in doing what you do.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Dr. Al, for having me today. This is super. So I'm an ADHD survivor. And my book is called Stirring My Soul to Sing, Overcoming ADHD Through Song. So basically, we talk about music therapy. And the thing was, like now that the book's been out since 2018, I just can't believe how well it's being received. It's gone around the world. And yeah, okay. And I'm overwhelmed that people want to hear my story. And basically it is, to do with using music therapy instead of medication.
Right. So, Ian, one of the things that you mentioned about ADHD and surviving from it, I know that when I was growing up, any kind of autism spectrum disorders, and that included everything from ADD and ADHD to Tourette's, Asperger's, dyslexia, and of course, autism itself, was 1 in 10,000 individuals. And that number now is in less than 1 in 58 in the world. And initially they thought there was a genetic component to this. And now we're seeing that there's a lot more environmental conditions and environmental factors that affect it. Causation aside, there's a lot of things that parents need to know about it. As you know, I myself have had ADHD all of my life and have dealt with it. So probably one of the reasons why we connect so well together.
Yeah, that's great.
But the reality of it is that sometimes parents look at it as if it's a disease, and I don't want to say that it is. Sometimes it does get in the way of your ability to be able to manage everyday functions in life. But at the same time, the same things that take away from your abilities to act like a quote unquote normal person also gives you certain gifts and abilities that the normal person does not have. And you need to embed, what do you call that? You need to revel and you need to embrace, basically. That's what I would say. You need to embrace those gifts, basically.
And sometimes they're like a superpower.
Exactly.
Like, that's what I'm feeling like right now. I just was chatting with one of my best friends like for 20 years, and he said, Ian, he said, all the stuff you are producing right now, you're like an energized button. And you know what? It's because things in my life are peaceful, are non-stressful, are creative, all of the things that I love to do, and it's all pouring out of me right now.
Right. Well, that's the thing. It comes naturally to someone who has ADHD. And in fact, most of the genius, most of the stuff that has happened throughout civilization has been probably due to somebody who was on the spectrum in the first place.
Absolutely.
So anyways, the reason that we're having this talk is because this is becoming more of a prevalent thing. You mentioned something about music therapy. I wanted to mention that people like Beethoven and Mozart, all of these were on the spectrum. And
they
in fact,
totally on the spectrum.
They said that Mozart's music literally served as his own therapy. It actually made him feel better, and that's why he composed the way he did. And studies do show that it affects certain parts of the brain more than others, and probably those areas that needed to be stimulated for him. So tell us a little bit more about this and how you kind of discovered this in your own life.
So I'm a singer and musician, but primarily my beginning training was as a singer. My mom was a soloist. My grandmother was a music director and choral director and organist. And so around the age of 9, 10 years old, my musicality was starting to come forth. And so my grandmother really insisted that I start to take music lessons, voice lessons. And she could see, at the time, 70s term, hyperactive kid, right? And so she could see that by me starting the process and learning and all of that, which I was always, like a keen, when I got into something that I was so passionate about, I was just like a deer in the headlights, like, and so I started voice lessons, and around that time, they told me that I had what was, now known as the beginnings of ADHD. Now, I didn't have formalized testing until 1996 when I went to university.
Mhm.
But, the stuff with there, well, my grandmother just loved me, and she was my confidant, and, good or bad, whatever was going on, I could always tell her, how I was feeling, what went on. And so she just started nurturing and teaching me how to sing properly. Grandma was helped to really develop a lot of the phrasing and a lot of the color. And mom worked with me on the notation because sometimes, I wasn't the best mathematician in those days. And so she could help me, with rhythm and stuff. So this just carried on for a number of years. I was singing in some different youth choirs or children's choirs to youth choirs. And then all of a sudden, I'm in high school and I'm like, I'm in a good mood. Like, what's going on here? You know, I'm doing what I wanted. I was rehearsing and practicing and been in this choir and been in this barbershop group and been in this, um, you know, uh, beginning to senior band. And I played flute in those days. And it's because I was schlepping around an accordion that was too heavy all the time. So I wanted something that was lighter. And, and so all of a sudden we discovered this must have to do with dopamine. I am happy, And so all of this started to sort of come together. And then I was talking to some friends who are, in the medical industry, and they said, Ian, you didn't need to be medicated. You had enough going on inside of you and in your brain that you were doing what you wanted to do. And so it was, projecting all of these good and positive things.
Right.
So when I sat down and sort of looked at this, then, I go into detail more about that on my blog, on my website. So if people wanted to know the procedure, I can give you that link. And I talk about the procedure as to how to sing, take a break, drink water, and then get back at it again. And so all of a sudden we just realized all of these things were working, like all of the cylinders were just like, 100%. And so it's when I started to sit down and think, okay, I need to tell my story. There was also a lot of bullying, there was a lot of shaming, there was also issues of some grandparents on my father's side that good and bad stories, where I was shamed, where I was excluded.
Mhm.
And the thing is, I didn't understand all of that, being 13, 14 or whatever, until I sort of analyzed it in my, in my adult years and with a really good therapist, and was able to say, whoa, hold on here, Um, and so I tell the story from youth to maturity.
Yeah.
And I'm just totally blown away as to the way people are receiving it. So I
Right.
want to be out there to talk to parents and what to do right and what not to do, especially when you have an ADHD kid.
So that's what I was going to ask you next. When you are meeting people and they're coming
Mm.
to you either because they have it or somebody in their family has ADHD or something similar, what are the typical challenges and the frustrations that you hear about? And what kind of a mindset shift do people need to do?
Um, it's really interesting now because from the standard, right, that they, when you go on and just Google ADHD, a lot of those certain points are definitely, in forefront. But
Right.
it's interesting now where it seems to be a lot more emotional issues. It's a
Right.
lot more brokenness. It's a
Right.
lot more, like, can you help me with what you know, And so I'm quite happy to, to sit and talk with individuals, or I'm not a coach yet. I'm planning that in the future when I slow down a little bit. Um, but the thing is, I can help to give some practical advice. And basically, and this is what I really believe very strongly, ADHD for kids has a lot of fear in it. And when parents break down that fear and just say, it's okay, you can do this, which builds self-esteem, I really believe.
Mhm.
If they're nurturing and just encouraging, not smothering, not helicoptering, over them, respecting their personal identities, but just nurturing from the sides. And,
Right.
I think there's a lot more that kids will be able to get over the fear. I think because of being a performer and being a singer, and I was used to the stage.
Right.
So, it was fearful at times, but I just, I got out there and I did what I had to do and sing or act and, and now speak.
Right.
And there are some times, where I get that whoa, and I just say, no, just deep breathe, you know, you
Right.
can do it. And
And
and so, but I really do believe, I'd like to see some more research, but I think I'm bang on that. I think ADHD a lot of the times for beginning youth is based on a lot of fear.
so I actually wanted to mention this. First of all, you mentioned nurturing, and then you
Mm-mm,
immediately clarified it that it is not helicopter parenting,
mm-mm,
and it is not handicapping the person
mm-mm.
from evolving. It's
No.
very important to understand that nurturing, as you mentioned, is more of a being there, being available, and positive
Yeah.
reinforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Because oftentimes kids that are on the spectrum are oftentimes just the way our school system, academic system is set up, it chastises mistakes, but that's how we learn.
Absolutely.
And ADHD and kids on the spectrum make a lot more mistakes, and they learn
Mm-hmm.
a lot more as a result of it, but
Oh,
also get
yeah, for sure.
chastised quite a bit because of it. And so it's important for us to give them that positive reinforcement so that they understand that they're
Absolutely.
moving forward the
Yeah.
right. So that's
And
being
that
said,
doesn't mean not discipline, you
right,
know?
exactly,
That means just pointing pointing them and nurturing and loving them.
right,
And this is what I'm seeing is a lot of, sort of between 40s and 60s, these kids weren't loved enough.
right,
They weren't encouraged enough.
right.
And so all of those other phobias just started, to manifest. And now, some of them have serious mental health issues.
Right.
And that's sad.
Right.
That
Exactly.
just really makes me sad,
Yeah, I
you
think
know?
every parent's genuine wish is to have kids that have happy, healthy, and
Mhm,
full lives, right?
mhm,
And what you just said kind of dampens that optimization, right? And you mentioned something else. You mentioned that a lot of this is emotional, and I did want to
mhm.
mention this to our audience members,
Yeah,
that when it comes to spectrum, the autism spectrum disorders, anxiety and depression oftentimes are very comorbid, or things that actually coexist with these situations. And it is
absolutely.
important for us to understand that addressing the emotional, like you mentioned, with the support, eliminates or diminishes some of that. And you
Mhm,
also mentioned something about dopamine.
mhm.
So see, you are ADHD and you went a million miles, and I picked up every single one of these.
I'm impressed. I am really, really, you know what, though, just before you go there, I just wanted to say, so back in the 70s, we had a very progressive doctor, family doctor, and he did not totally believe in medication for this new disorder, okay? So he suggested we as a family go into therapy, into counseling.
Mm.
It was the best thing that we did.
Right.
And you know, the sessions, and every once in a while my siblings, because I have two sisters and a brother, and every once in a while we'll be talking about this, and you know, and I'll say to them, well, the only thing that I remember was I was drawing pictures and they were black. You know, the characters and everything were black, and then I would scratch all over it. And that was a very, very difficult time for me,
Wow.
because I was taken out of the school system and put into a special class where I really didn't need to be, you
Mm.
know, but it was the 70s. And so, you know, like basically, if I had had just a tutor to help me with math, my mother used to say math, they put you there because of math and maturity, but I don't totally believe that, you know. Now it was a traumatic experience for me. It was in a difficult part of the school, like a school in our area. There was a lot of tough kids. There was a lot of stuff that was just beyond anything that was in my frame of reference.
Mm.
And so, and I was there for 2 years, and thank God in the second year, we had an amazing teacher. He was military trained and had his master's and everything in special education. But he recognized me and he said, "You're smart. You're intelligent. You know, what are you doing here?" And he did basically said that to me. And I said, "Well, I don't know, the system maybe," you know. And and the thing is, he got me out of that program
Right.
and back into the Rotary.
Right.
And then I was able to complete grade 5 there, right to grade 8, and then I went, you know, onwards to high school.
Right.
But the thing was, that was so traumatic. Actually, every once in a while I wake up and I still have dreams. It's in my psyche,
Yeah.
you know, and I have to just say, no, that was from the past. Like, just, you know, leave it there, please. And um, but I don't think my parents really understood the trauma of that.
Right.
And that's really important too, is when kids get to a certain age, like I couldn't tell my parents all of the bad stuff that happened, all the bullying, all that stuff, till I was about 20,
Mhm.
20 or
Yeah.
22.
It actually takes a while for
Oh my
the adult
goodness.
mind to kind of let it sink in about the experience you
Hmm.
just had for a couple of decades, basically, and
Hmm.
then process that. And actually, one of the things I wanted to mention was when you were mentioning the dopamine was the fact that
Hmm.
uh, we talked about medications, and oftentimes in private practice, I used to tell the patients that it's like, you know, the medication is not going to fix the
Mm-mm,
situation. What it
mm-mm.
does, it normalizes the kids so
Yeah.
that it's more acceptable by society, but it also takes
And the
away some of those
teachers,
gifts. Right, exactly.
that
And
they can tolerate it.
so
Yeah, the
if you
child.
have to take the medication so that you can do your therapy, you can evolve, you can actually find out what works for you to nurture your brain, then by all means take the medication. But don't
Yeah,
look at the medication as the solution by which you're going to be
exactly.
exactly.
Yeah,
So let's go
yeah.
back to the music therapy uh,
Okay.
talked about. So tell us a little bit more about that, and what are some of the things that our parents could take away from this? And
So
kind
if you're from artistic background, okay, and like I'm just finding more and more, especially coming out of COVID, that I'm so grateful that I am a creative person.
Mhm.
And kind of like Dorothy, you know, I can go off to the Wizard of Oz and or you know, I can get saturated in like a beautiful art book, or you know, or just, you know, go outside and just enjoy the beauty of the space, and you know, and look at the colors and look at all of this kind of stuff. And to me, I think that's how maybe I survived. I don't know. I
Right.
mean, you know, it's just I think it's left brain, right? Is it left brain that's the creative side, or is it the right brain? I always
It's
get them mixed up. I do.
it actually depends because believe it or not, there are certain individuals where the actual hemispheres are switched as well. So it's not
Ah,
just that one side is stronger than the other, but also
okay.
your left side could be doing the right brain stuff and vice versa.
Well, I see
So,
I'm left-handed
right.
and I think I'm stronger on my left side. So that's why I think
So you're in the
left
right
brain.
mind. That's what it
Oh,
comes down to.
okay. Well, anyways, but and so, creativity has helped me so much.
Right.
And so if parents can sort of see that and just really start to nurture that music, art, dance, drama,
Right.
there's such a difference. Again, the word nurturing, just and letting that child free to explore their
Right.
creativity.
Exactly.
I think that's the way to go. And I think if more doctors would just look at the patient, look
Right.
at the family, and then sort of decide, this kid needs to be off the drugs. I like, but I know I'll get into trouble for that, for saying that.
Well, that's the thing. There is a need. There are certain times when there is a need for medication. We're not saying that
Yeah,
that's not important.
no,
However, it is important to let a personality develop, and there's also
yeah,
a time and a place for that as well, basically.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
Ian, I had a question for you. If people
sure.
wanted to connect with you, hear more about what you've got to say, where would they go, and what would be the best way?
So come on to my website, and it's www at Emlian, EMLIAN, communications, plural.org. And then you can contact me through info at Emlian Communications. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Emlian, WIW, and you can just Google me. There's lots of references to some of my talks and media appearances.
Absolutely. That's awesome. I know that there's a lot more awareness and there's a lot more options these days than when we were growing up. However, it's
Absolutely.
always nice to have people that are similar to you in their neurology, and for you to see that, hey, you're not crazy, that there are other
That's
people like you.
exactly.
And that is important. So I do want to encourage our audience members, our parents, those of you who are on the spectrum or have family members that are on the spectrum, to connect, reach out to Ian. I'm going to put the information, the links, all of the description in the description box. If you haven't already done so, also click subscribe. So when we have experts come in, you get notified of it. You can get their expertise, gifts, and the connection and contact information that they provide for us. And I encourage you guys to role model the behavior of reaching out for support, so that your kids understand that they don't have to do things alone, no matter how unique they are, that there's always somebody that can be supportive, that can be understanding, and we need to model that behavior for them.
Right
So
on.
before we finish, Ian, any final words for our audience members?
No, I think we've said it all. And if you want to know more details about my life, my career, I've had a successful arts management career as well as a singer. Please check out my book, Stirring My Soul to Sing, Overcoming ADHD Through Song, published by Word Alive Press.
Awesome. Thank you, Ian, for what you do, and keep connecting to those individuals. And we'll see you guys in future episodes. Cheers.
Thanks so much, Dr. Al.
Take care.